presentation will be coming from Dr. Bill Fox. He's an associate professor with the Texas A&M, and he will be sharing with us forage forecasting, nutrient analyst decision supporting for rangeland, grazeland, and ecosystem. Would y'all give him a round of applause, please?
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate the introduction there. Thank you all very much for coming out to hear the talks this morning. We're going to shift gears a little bit, and that's I'm actually quite happy that I got to follow the two previous presentations, because it's very important what they're developing and how they communicate with this. And I am the proud father of a Gen Z, and also the most impatient person that there is when it comes to somebody that's staring at a phone and everything else. But I've recognized and finally accepted the fact that that's how these generations are going to communicate. So I'm hoping that the information that I'm going to talk about actually is going to be the kind of information that will find its way into these social media activities, as well as be able to provide information to landowners when it comes to how to the decision support efforts that they're making for their individual operations. I'd like to acknowledge first my co-authors, Jay Anger, Doug Tollison, who are both enjoying themselves in Brazil right now. Megan Clayton and Bob Lyons from Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Ms. Jenny Pluhar is here in the audience with the Texas GLC, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because we are firm believers that the Grazing Lands Coalition is a tremendous outlet for these kinds of activities. And I'm not, as Jenny would call me, the typical pointy-headed scientist. I actually come from a family that is a heritage ranch in Texas, 110 years in the family in agriculture. So, but I will talk a little bit about forage forecasting and nutritional analytics, a big name for what I hope will be, what we hope will be a very good information source for landowners into the future. So I've got three objectives today. One of them I've already done, the first one here, and let y'all know that we are working in partnership between Texas A&M AgriLife Research Extension Service and the Texas Grazing Lands Coalition. And many landowners, some of who are here today. We also are in discussions and constantly in collaboration and talks with folks like Noble Research Institute, other universities. We're not a closed group. We want this stuff to get out there and try to help people, because our ultimate goal is to put in the hands of the producer information that could help them with their decision making, if that's how they want to move forward. I'll provide a bit of an overview about the decision support tools themselves. I'll try not to be too detailed about it, because there's a lot that goes in behind it, and if you're interested in what goes behind it, we could certainly have those conversations later. But just try to give you some ideas of the kind of information that we are producing and how it would potentially be beneficial to our stakeholders. And then I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about how we kind of view this as some opportunities to fit into some emerging markets. You know, we've all heard stories, and there's lots of work on emerging markets that have to do with water, have to do with carbon, have to do with air. And you know, a lot of times as a landowner and a family member, you know, I kind of turned my nose up to that. But on the other hand, when I started thinking about it, that's just another opportunity for diversification. If it fits your operation and it's something that you want to try to do, and you have an interest in a market and trying to get into it, I think it's just another opportunity. But I'll talk a little bit about a couple of ideas and how these tools, I believe, will be able to help with that moving forward too. How did we get here? A couple of different things have happened. most of us would remember in some form or fashion the drought in 2011. It's a drought of record for Texas, drought of record for a lot of places, and just done a whole lot of damage to the grazing lands. But drought is a driver that we deal with all the time. We never really know when it's coming. We have some ways to indicate that it's coming. We are hoping that the tools that we're working with will help provide some more opportunities for that forecasting and where we're going to get. We also recognize that weather varies. Climatic forces are changing all the time. El Nino, La Nina. These things are going on, and they all have an influence in one form or fashion on the forage production, the quality of forage that may be coming out, the nutritional the meeting nutritional requirements seasonally for the livestock that we're working with. So we feel like this would be a vital resource to land managers as a part of a drought management or drought resilience type of program. It also, hopefully, would be able to provide the kind of information that landowners and managers can use in their risk management in trying to diminish their economic and exposures, the social and ecological impacts that can be driven by drought. Not only drought, but other things that influence vegetation production. Why forecast? Well, I thought about this for a while, and quite honestly, it's because we're really used to it. Most of us wake up in the morning, pick up the phone, turn on the TV, look and see what the weather's going to be. We understand what a forecast means. I'd really like to be in a job where I could be right 50% of the time and still get paid. Many of us that work in this industry, it's very difficult, but we understand forecasts and we can look at it. We know whether we're going to get our umbrella, put on the cold jacket or whatnot. So we're used to forecasts and understanding what they mean. For most grazing land production systems, we also recognize again that drought poses a real risk and that adaptive management challenges can benefit from some early warning capabilities and can be a critical role in making decisions. Again, since we understand that drought influences livestock production, it can impact both the reductions in the quantity and quality of the forage base that we have. It also impacts in reductions in the field crop production. So if we've got hay or other activities that we're dealing with, if we could look out into the future and start to see some of these forecasts and what might be coming down the road based upon the information that we have, it allows for that management process to maybe take a step forward and a little earlier in the process. And I'll just go, finish with this last idea that ultimately, and I believe that grazers are the true stewards of the natural resource. Ultimately, we feel like this has the ability to help those grazers in maintaining resilience of the land. And our desire is to provide tools and information that helps folks continue to meet their operational needs while also maintaining their resource base. I don't know, has anybody seen the hydrological cycle? I think in some form or fashion. This is kind of how we function, though, isn't it, if we really want to be honest. When it's raining over there, we got our umbrella up. Yeah, the tank may be a little bit dry from the last drought, but, we're happy, we're smiling, it's raining. Once the tank fills up, well, we got time, we're fishing. Cows got plenty of grass out there, sheep and goats, whatever they need, they've got what they need, so we've got time to relax. But inevitably, drought comes, starts to kick in. Maybe we don't quite see it coming just yet, but it's, indicators are there. All of a sudden we become aware of it. The tub is draining pretty quickly. We get concerned, and then panic kicks in. And what we want to try to do is stay away from that panic. Well, what we've got, there's a lot of good efforts already in place for drought management plans and the things that we do to prepare when these types of disasters start to come across us and how we're going to react to them. And once they get there, you know, we get that concern point, well, we've got our actions, whether it's destocking, whether we're pulling in supplemental feeds or things like that. We've got that side of the equation down. Sometimes those actions are the really difficult decisions that have to be made. But where we feel like that we could fit into this is where we're in that apathy point, but the drought's starting to come on. That's where we feel like forecasting fits in. That's where we feel like we can move a little bit ahead in the process of being that preparedness, being more available, and those actions hopefully becoming less drastic as time goes through it. And ultimately we end up, at least we're never going to get rid of the drought, but maybe we get rid of that panic stage. And that's what we'd like to try to do. So shifting gears just a little bit, I'm going to go into some of the things that are inside the toolbox. I'm not, again, going to go into a great deal of detail. If y'all would like to see some more detailed information about this, I'd be happy to share. We've got some websites and things like that. But just to give you an idea, FiGrow is a vegetation growth model that was developed, and it's not one of these models that's just been sitting on the shelf for however many years. Back in the late 80s, Dr. Jerry Stuth, Dr. Richard Connor, and Mr. Wayne Hamilton at Texas A&M started putting this thing together. This model actually, over the years, has gotten to a point to where it's working very well, and being able to look at forecasts. Now, I'm not saying predictions, forecasts, out 30, 60, 90 days. Now, that was one of the questions that we asked early on to some of the GLC folks in Texas. Is that 30, 60, 90-day period, is that something that would have impact on your management? You know, if you got some forecast earlier on in that, would that affect how you might look at management decisions in your place? And they told us yes. That's why we felt like we should continue to go on. We wanted that input from them before we got going too far. But this is a tool that allows the vegetation side to look at how things are going out 30, 60, 90 days. And just to give you an example, on the left-hand side there, that shows the stop date of when the tool put out its information, and it's Christmas Day 2016. On that particular day, it had been 22 days since the last rain. Our long-term forage for that hypothetical bull pasture is about 1,342 kilograms per hectare, and I know it's about 1,200 pounds per acre. That's where we work in. Sorry, that's how they published, but that's where we work. So, based upon a long-term inputs and the vegetation inventories and things that are working already on the landscape with the landowners, you can look and you see, well, at that particular time, we'd estimate that there's about 1,300, that forage day, about 1,300 pounds per acre there. And then you could see what it looks at. It looks at historically what the weather has done and the different types of species that are out there, and it starts to forecast how much forage would be available 30 days, 60 days, 90 days ahead. Is that what it's going to be? We don't know. But are those the kinds of information that might be beneficial for the manager, for the operator, to be able to say, you know, I'm looking at this and I've got about 90 days from now, I'm getting in a little bit of a precarious situation with my forage. I may need to be thinking about rotating a little early if I'm in a rotational system, or I might be needing to bring in some nutritional supplements or something like that. We're not trying to tell people what to do. We're trying to provide information to let them and their experiences and what they know works for them become more effective. The other thing that you could do with this is also see where you've been, and it's working pretty well. If you look at that first circle there, well, that's the drought starting in 2011 and how far it went into 2012. And then you could see shortly thereafter 2014, that green starts kicking in. We had some pretty good rain. Matter of fact, one of the cooperators that's working with us, I remember him saying he lives in what is it, at Blooming Grove, about 40 inches, 38 inches, just south of Dallas. And I think at the end of the year, he told me they had 72 inches of rainfall. That's crazy. So they grew a lot of grass there. Here's another way of looking at it. And where I'm going with all this, I'm giving information of what these tools are going to push out. But where we're going is that system that people are going to be able to use, that dashboard, the internet, the mobile apps, and things like that. But here's another way of looking at it. You could look at this and say that, that bull pasture, you could look at the fluctuation over the years, a couple of years there, vegetation production, forage production, and at the end of it, it runs out, it's 3 months, and it says, if you got all the good situation in place, you get your rains and those things, well, that yellow dotted line is kind of where you could be for your forage production. The green is what has been the average, and the red is what's lower. If you're interested in looking at how much, I've had compared to previous years, there's another output from it that lets you look at deviation from normal, from average. Again, the thing about it is there's two different levels that you could look at this. If you want to get involved as an operator, you could build these types of the data behind this, and it could be for your own operation at that level. For those that don't want to get in that detail, we're also looking at this from a regional perspective, some of the general ideas of what's going on in the region for this. And so it has we're hoping for two levels of application. The second tool is Nutbell. Does anyone do the fecal sampling with NRCS and ship them down to the Grazing Animal Nutrition Laboratory? Okay, yeah, Jeff, of course you do. Anyway, Nutbell is a nutritional balance tool. It's a model that's there. It, again, built originally back in the late 80s, early 90s, in coordination with USDA. But it gives us a means to evaluate the forage quality and quantity that the livestock, and whether it's adequate to meet the needs and performance goals that we've set for ourselves. It has the ability basically to look and say, what are the impacts of the forage that's being forecasted and the forage that we have there, and it's crude protein and energy. The simple, basic issues of what can influence animal performance. It has the ability to look at it at stage of life too, life cycle during the year, whether it's in, are your livestock in a maintenance point? Are you looking for gain? Are you in lactation? Those types of things fits into this tool, so that you could get to the point to where, based upon the fecal analysis and things like that, and we're using generalities. We gather observed information locally from folks, those that participate, and this would be a level of detail further into what would be our dashboard that an individual who has participated in this program could then have available to them. But it gives you an opportunity to look and see what your crude protein's done over the last 12 months. Or if you're more inclined to look at the livestock themselves and seeing what the estimating body condition scores, you could look at it. Provides what would be a forecasted body condition score and gives you the opportunity to go out and look at your animals and say, well, am I there? Maybe I need to ask the question of myself. Is there something out here that's going on that wants to do it? Again, the idea is not that this gives the answer. The idea is to get people thinking. It's something indicating that maybe I need to ask myself, and based upon my experiences, is there something going on that I need to consider for my management aspect? And then the last thing that I would really tell you all about is how we put all this together into the livestock early warning system. And unfortunately, these tools have been very well used over the last 20 years in East Africa, in Mongolia, in South America. And it just bothers me that they were developed here in the United States and we're not using them. And the problem is that they were very detail-oriented in what went in to using them. What we are doing with the Conservation Innovation Grant within RCS and our partners right now is adapting these tools to be able to use what those action agencies do in their normal day-to-day activities with their producers that they're working with, whether it be forage mapping, forage inventories, and things like that, to have that be what it's based on, not the detail-oriented aspects of it. And so there's some work that's going on with refining those tools, but we're getting there. But you could see what ultimately, from a regional perspective, might be an outcome. There on the top, you've got a map of Mongolia. It's the 1st through the 15th of 2017. It looks really good. You know, you got a lot of green up there. Of course, at the bottom is the Gobi Desert, so you're not expecting a whole lot of green down there. But if you look at the map below, that's the deviation in forage availability. And it's not near as good. So it may be that they've got some forage available, but unfortunately it's not what it usually is. And that's the kind of a regional idea that says, you know what, it's looking like here, maybe I need to go and talk with somebody or put some feed on hedging a feed buying or things like that. And then you could get the same sort of a situation. So this is November. Here we are, 2 months out, 60 days, and you could look and see, again, what's going on, how much forage is actually available, the deviation for what it's been. These are the kinds of information that we see these tools being able to provide regionally to folks to get them going. Again, if you want to get involved and do the work of setting up the local, then that's great. Then the kind of information that I showed with the Phygrow output and the Nutbell output becomes even more valuable. But our goal is to be able to provide information to folks in such a way that it becomes an indication that maybe I am wanting to pay attention. It looks like we might be heading into a forage deficit situation. I need to start thinking about how, you know, dust off my drought management plan or whatever it may be. Get you into the office with the NRCS agent or the county agent, whatever it is. If it gets action moving forward, then I think that's where we're trying to go with this. To finish off, a couple of quick things. You bring it all together, we've got the forage risk assessment management system. That's kind of the guts that's going to hold all this together. I'm not going to go into any great details there, but it's the framework that brings all of these outputs together. And we're going to end up in and I apologize for this being blurry, but that was a screenshot that I got, I think, night before last. We'll end up with a dashboard type of situation. Again, a situation where a lot of people these days are used to. We're used to working on the internet with dashboards in some form or fashion, where you would go in and enter your information about your place. And if you stop there, then you would get a general regional output if you go back into the system based upon what's going on regionally in the information that's going there. But as an individual, if you want to get more detailed, well, you could start working with the action agency or with yourself and the family from a map and start entering the operational information, pastures, forage assessments that you have, that you've worked with, to a point to where you get yourself set up, and ultimately on that dashboard you could be looking at the outputs that I showed earlier. You got your map, you know what pasture you're in. That pasture's kicking out the bull pasture you can see there. It's kicking out the forage forecast for the next 30 days. Shows us our deviation and rainfall. So a lot of these things are all going to be coming together into one location. We hope, and we really feel like, that these efforts put together will provide a decision support system that has the ability to affect livestock and wildlife producers across a broad swath of management sizes, a wide variety of goals. I want to acknowledge that we have 10 cooperators in Texas working with us on this. Very happy, all GLC members, and ranging from about 75 acres to about 130,000 acres. So we're looking at it across a broad swath of land sizes and things like that. But our ultimate goal is to hopefully provide an information source that would allow for those ownerships and operations to utilize that information in helping them meet their long-term goals for ownership and management. And with that, here's a couple of pictures of some of our cooperators. We are Rangelands. Sorry, unabashed plug for Society for Range Management, which I'm a member too. But we are Rangelands, and we are working with our friends that are out on the land, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you have some.